Good evening, welcome to Tonight with Bruce Whitfield. Out of studio today, but at a very interesting place. It's not every day that the Minister of Finance takes time to speak publicly and to give his thoughts about the financial industry. Well, this week I had the opportunity to facilitate at the Discovery Financial Planning Summit, where I met up with the Minister and where we discussed the financial industry, its products, with views from all over the world. Let's have a look at what the Minister had to say on stage live in front of an audience of nearly 2,000 people at the Sandton Convention Centre.
Minister, if I can ask you to come over here, because the furniture removal guys are coming and they're going to move things behind us. Let's ignore them and focus on the questions that will come up on the screen seamlessly in front of me in just a moment. Many of you sending questions, thank you, but try to treat your questions, please, as Twitter light. Twitter says you can have a maximum of 140 characters. If you can do your questions in 60 characters, we've got a better chance of getting through them, because some of you are writing essays, which is very impressive on smartphones, by the way, but we can't manage that. So I must just ask you, so were you ever a broker?
Indeed.
So you got commissions?
Yes, for, 5 years?
So you understand the pain that the people in this room are going through?
Indeed. I still have some of my clients with policies maturing, they still come to me. Because some of them, because of their age, don't even know where I work now. And perhaps because of the nature of my job. Nobody knows where I work. My kids themselves don't know what I do.
It's better that way, usually. Yeah. They can never phone you at the office. But it does give you, I suppose, a sensitivity to RDR and the change that this industry and the people in this industry are going through right now.
Look, I think we live in it's a dynamic environment. And at the end of the day, I would want to believe that we all have to adapt to the ever-changing landscape. Sizwe here mapped out some of how the industry has actually changed, and if the industry also is not adapted in order to be able to play in the new space, the industry is not going to survive.
What are you going to do about Eskom? Now, the build program is not in your hands. It is Brian Molefe's hands. That's called the hospital pass from Transnet into Eskom. But when it comes to the National Energy Regulator, which dictates the increases that Eskom can get, and they've applied for 25%. They've been getting nowhere near their application in recent years, but it's inflationary. It takes money out of ordinary people's pockets. And the first thing to suffer ultimately will be savings, long-term savings. As finance minister, you must be desperately concerned about that.
Correct. Look, I always say the transport challenge has actually got three phases to it. The first is the financial sustainability of the entity. And what we are doing and the package that we put before the country and what we are actually working on together with the acting chief executive is making sure that that part is addressed. We put together a package where there is equity injection, the conversion of the subordinated loan to equity in order to enhance the balance sheet, but also impressed upon Eskom to realize some efficiencies within themselves. That's the first one. I mean, that's what the package in a nutshell. But it's also with supporting Eskom to be able to move towards a cost-reflective tariff. For a long period of time, we have enjoyed cheap electricity in the country. It is tough. You are correct to say that if the increase in tariffs is high, it will actually have a negative impact on the economy and particularly the poor and the vulnerable and the industries, a number of industries that are energy intensive. That's the first part. The second part is about governance at Eskom. And that's what government is seized with. A new board is now in place. We've strengthened the board. The acting chief executive is a person who I believe has got the skills to be able to move with the proper understanding of the environment. Fortunately, he also comes from the asset and liability side of the Treasury. He's also been in the private sector as the chief executive of the PIC. He's got a track record, and he is somebody that we think we have an understanding in the space of actually running an institution of its magnitude. And then the third one is the building of the capacity Eskom in order to generate the electricity that the economy in the country requires. That part ranges from the completion of the power stations, starting with Medupi. The Unit 6 is already being tested. Likelihood is that by the end of June, we will have about 800 megawatts coming out of that. We've seen that with the support also of the alternative energy sources through the IPPs and the renewable energy side, we've seen close to 2,000 megawatts already in the pipeline. We envisage we will get about 5,000 on that. Co-generation being part of that. But so it's all these three phases that we are working on, and we are spending a lot of time, energy, and resources to ensure that all these three elements are taken care of, and we are quite confident that we're making progress.
Many of the people in the room earn a lot of money, and they will continue to earn a lot of money, which raises the next question. They're wanting insight into your next year's February budget speech. Will you raise taxes significantly in the next 2 years? If so, which taxes will rise? Let me rephrase it slightly. I think you said in this budget speech, the most recent budget speech, that you upped the marginal rate to 41%, and there was a clear indication that that is going to go up. By how much?
I don't know where you get the indication there, Bruce.
I think you said, I'm putting up taxes, brace yourselves.
Yes.
I think.
No. I mean, I think you misread the message.
Thank goodness.
But that also doesn't say that, what we said, we've put a fiscal package before the nation where we are saying the 2 coming years are going to be tough because we're trying to build the fiscal space that we have lost over the years. We've lost it because the economy didn't grow enough. We've lost it also because, as in the past, we had the luxury of being able to grow the tax base whilst reducing the tax burden. We have reached a point where, in order to consolidate, we actually do need to create that space by lowering the growth of rate of our expenditure and enhancing our revenue. That we have done, and it was very moderate, and that is why people didn't even feel the 1 percentage point you are talking about. So there is,
I can
see, but I can see that there is the appetite for us to do that. But we have the Davis Tax Committee that we have requested to actually just review our tax policy in general, and from there, we would be in a position to be able to determine whether there is a need or not. Because the other part that has clearly come up, I think we haven't closed the tax gap enough. So there is a focus on also looking at the tax gap. A number of reports have also come out with the illicit flow of funds, the base erosion and profit shifting. All of those put together might actually give us space to be able to build the fiscal space that we require without inflicting pain. But I think it's good for citizens to have some kind of an anesthetic that so that when the pain is inflicted, it is not.
But if you need anesthetic, you're also going to put up the tariffs on bottles of whiskey, so that anesthetic gets taken away as well. You see,
no. Those are willing contributors to the economy.
The Davis Committee did recommend an increase in VAT. VAT is politically a very difficult sell. Did I read the indication accurately, though it is something that you might consider?
Well, it's a recommendation that comes also with a lot of work that needs to be done. A consultation process, a thorough study and feasibility of how it will impact, besides it being politically sensitive. But it's, as people in this room would tell you, some will tell you how regressive it can be, which means it has an impact on the poor. And so we would always have to find mitigating measures when we move in that space. So at the moment, we are open to the Davis Tax Committee recommendations. It is not the only one. There are quite a number of others that are on the table. But we will give ourselves time to consult and also to test its impact on the economy, and particularly the poor and the vulnerable.
You talked about retirement reforms. There were going to be some very significant retirement reforms, I beg your pardon, brought through last year. There was opposition from COSATU to things like preservation and all of those sorts of issues, big issues for the people in this room. How far are you away to bringing back those retirement reforms?
The retirement reforms are all on the table. What we are doing with all the stakeholders is clarifying some of the misinterpretations and misunderstandings. Because in the first place, the preservation part is something that we all agree on. But the understanding of preservation, because again, I mentioned the issue of the over-indebtedness of the population and lack of savings. So for people, because preservation talks to a 1/3 payout at retirement or at termination of services, but also it's not only the preservation, it's the portability to be, when people change jobs, that they are able. So we actually are dealing with all those clarifications at NEDLAC and in all other fora where we are clarifying this. So they are on the table. We are continuing with the reforms, and we are looking at the broader social security reform, because that's the other concern that Labour had raised, that it seems like we're only dealing with one part of the comprehensive social security reform. Perhaps we should actually be looking at the entire comprehensive social security reform. That paper is before NEDLAC, and we've had a number of engagements. We're making good progress.
I'll let you go in just a few minutes. A fabulous question from the floor was, what would you like this room of brokers to be doing in their daily lives? It's a nice, broad, general question. I assume it's all about encouraging savings, encouraging protection, people protecting themselves, looking after themselves. What do you see the role of the 1,500 people in this room whose job it is to give people financial independence?
Well, if all of them were just to give up 10% of their wages as taxes.
That's a good idea, yeah. Okay, but, so that's the first thing, yeah?
No. I think that would be very unfair. I wouldn't expect them to do that. But as I said earlier, in our National Development Plan, what we call for is a partnership between government and the private sector. And we all have a role to play in our given areas of participation in our economy. And I mentioned a few things in my input. One of them being that the products that are sold to our people, and I think Sizwe made mention of that as well. I think we need to start developing products that actually have a heart, products that actually serve the kind of the market that we serve. South Africa, because of its challenges, I spoke now about the portability of the retirement products. I think it's important that we have simpler products that would be able to serve that underserviced sector of our community, but also that would take into account some of the challenges that our people confront when they change jobs, when they lose jobs, and also to be able to support them during the times of need. That's the first one. But also the second one is investing in the infrastructure rollout program that government is embarking on. Mobilizing resources to be able to do that. Our infrastructure gap as a country runs into trillions. And if we were to get the private sector to work with us, government can only go that far, but if the private sector mobilizes resources into investing in our infrastructure, our partnership would work much better.
Well, it was great to meet up with the Minister of Finance. I hope you learned something from the discussion that I had with him at the Discovery Financial Planning Summit. That's it for tonight with Bruce Whitfield. Till next time, good night and goodbye.